Greetings, 2%ers. Oh, wait a minute. I have to check. Vicki says I have to make sure that my hair doesn't poke up through the front of my hat. She says it embarrasses her. All right, much better now. So here's what we're doing today. We have a 2006 Chevy Silverado with 6-liter V8. And this car has, I believe, some kind of crankshaft position sensor wiring issue or something like that. Not totally sure. But here is the history on this vehicle. I found this guy. He lives just 3 miles away in my neighborhood. Found him on the Nextdoor app. For those of you guys in other countries, Nextdoor is a thing we often use here where different people within the same neighborhood, if you're within the same neighborhood, there's little networks on this app called Nextdoor where everybody within your neighborhood, if they have this app, can communicate with each other. And you can do things like, hey, can you recommend a plumber? Or, hey, there was a crime in the area, and they can report it. So everybody's kind of looped in with what's going on in the area. Obviously, a lot of people asking for help on a lot of things. And interestingly enough, one guy asked, hey, is there someone around who can do a crankshaft position sensor relearn on my Silverado? Well, obviously that got my attention, so I told him, of course, I'll be happy to do that. But of course, I wanted to get some background on why he believes he needs this. And this is the background that I have and the current symptoms on the vehicle. So the background is he inherited the truck from his father after his father unfortunately passed away. And the truck ran absolutely terrible. It had a P0335 code, to the best of my memory, P0335, which is a crankshaft position sensor lack of signal code. And we'll talk about that in a second because obviously a major clue. He replaces the crankshaft position sensor, which involves on this vehicle removing the starter to get to it. And after replacing the crankshaft position sensor, now instead of the previous symptom where sometimes the car wouldn't start or it would just cut out while driving, he now has it where it just runs like crap. And it has a P0336 code now, so a little different code, and we'll talk about that as well. And he did a little research and he found that he needs a crankshaft position sensor relearn. So I go over there and when we start the car up, the car runs absolutely perfectly fine, absolutely smooth, and no cutouts, nothing like that, no stumbles, anything. So I was like, yeah, it does seem like you probably fixed it. Let's just go ahead and do this relearn. And when you do the relearn, the first thing you have to do is you've got to warm up the vehicle to operating temperature, and then you briefly bring it to 4,000 RPM. Well, unfortunately, once we brought the vehicle to operating temperature, everything changed. It absolutely ran like crap. And we couldn't do the relearn because we couldn't even get it to near 4,000 RPM. The truck wouldn't even go past like 2,400 RPM at best. So it was also pretty clear to me that there was something else going on besides that the truck needed a relearn. Generally, when you do the relearn, you don't even know it. The truck runs perfectly fine. You would do this after replacing crankshaft position sensor or after any timing work on the vehicle or anything like that. And this didn't seem to be quite that case. I did try driving the vehicle a little bit, and I can tell you it would not even get out of its own way. It barely could make 20 miles an hour, and it just absolutely was stumbling and chugging and hesitating, just horrible. So I didn't bring anything other than the scan tool with me because I was expecting to just do the relearn. So I told them that, yeah, I'll need to take a closer look at this vehicle. And the guy drove the vehicle over, dropped it off last night. He lives 3 miles away. He said he had no problems driving the vehicle at all. But what we need to do is get it up to operating temperature and then see if we can replicate the symptoms and then find out what the cause is. Now, of course, before we do that, we're going to make a plan because we have some background information. We have some clues on the code that he originally had and the code after replacing the sensor. And to me, this tells me exactly the direction I want to go. So I want to go over that with you guys first on the strategy we're going to use, and then we'll see how well that points us in the direction we needed to go. This Silverado is gigantic. It's a big work truck, so I need to make some room in the garage for it. Oh, no, now looks like I got false.
Weird little tufted hairs sticking out of there. You don't have to wear it all out. Love you.
Love you. No, I got everything. Okay, let's make some room in the garage. Oh my gosh, how I miss that sound. But for those of you guys following along on the saga with Blackbird over there, who is recovering from this minor little mishap, well, as you can see, he is back up and running, and we just have a little more work to do. We've got to balance out the engine with the other cylinder head, replacing with the higher tension valve springs so that it's all balanced. And we, of course, will show how to do that with the cylinder head on the vehicle as soon as I get some time. Hopefully, I can start filming something tomorrow. But right now, we got to get that Silverado underway. So before we do, let's draw out the plan, putting together a scientific process based on the observations that we have so far. Okay, and for those of you guys on the other channel, of course, you guys know all about cam and crankshaft position sensor operation because we cover that in the diagnosis and understanding video. So this is going to be pretty basic. The other thing that's really kind of nice is we won't really need a wiring diagram because this is basically going to be the same setup as what I have on my Trans Am, which is what we used as the demo model for that video to understand camshaft and crankshaft position sensors and the different designs. This is going to be a Hall effect design. I have no question in my mind about that. I believe it's going to be a 12-volt reference, I believe. I will check that. I am not sure. Could be a 5-volt. And, of course, we need to understand what these codes were so that we know what we're going to be looking for and how to best approach it. All right, so the original code the guy had, which on the GM car is typically going to be a no crankshaft position sensor signal code. So essentially, for a certain period of time, and I don't remember how long that time is, it's somewhere along the lines like 3 or 5 seconds, something like that. If no crankshaft signal is detected with the engine turning, and of course it knows the engine's turning from the camshaft position sensor, but if it doesn't detect a crankshaft position signal at all for a certain amount of time, PCM will throw this P0335 code. Of course, upon getting that P0335 code, most people are going to just replace the crankshaft position sensor. That is what this guy did. And then after replacing the crankshaft position sensor, the vehicle no longer has the symptoms as before, which is it would cut out, it would sometimes no start, and also run pretty rough. So he replaces it. Now, after replacement, he develops the P0336. With this, he has a new set of symptoms. One of them is it initially runs good. Another one is no more cut out or no start. So the symptoms change a bit. It runs at least a little bit more consistently. Then the other thing is after warm-up, it runs worse than ever. So that's what we're dealing with on this. Now, the P0336 code is a little bit different in that this is essentially a crankshaft position sensor inconsistent So in this one, if over a certain period of time there is an in and out or intermittent signal from the crankshaft position sensor, that's where you'll get your P0336. So based on this is giving me a direction because I can put a story together which I believe is going to be the most likely explanation, and that is going to be some kind of loose wiring, loose connection, or something with crankshaft position sensor itself, because initially he has no signal from the crankshaft position sensor, but after replacing it, he gets intermittent or inconsistent signal, according to at least the criteria that sets this code. And what that's telling me is most likely he probably didn't need the crankshaft sensor originally. There was some kind of wiring or short or some issue there that when he moved the wiring around, replacing the crankshaft position sensor, he created a different positioning, and now there's just an inconsistent code. Of course, I don't know this for sure. This is just the hypothesis that I'm going on, but I want to have some direction where I'm not just randomly changing parts, and I have a good idea of where I want to start with. One of the things that's a little bit annoying about this type of vehicle, and the same thing happened with my Trans Am, we have the crankshaft position sensor located behind the starter. So I have to remove the starter to get to the crankshaft position sensor. As you know, I am not going to get under a vehicle and remove a starter from a vehicle unless I absolutely have to. The way I would do this, as you know, is I would go to the PCM and I would read the signals from the PCM. The problem is, given this story, most likely the issue is going to be at the connection near the crankshaft position sensor itself. So I know that it is going to be a waste of time, most likely, for me to go to the PCM to read my data. I want to go directly to the area where I'm likely to visually find a problem, which is going to be at the sensor itself. It is going to be justified in this case for me to remove a starter, whereas typically that would be a really big time-consuming waste, because I have easier ways of reading the data off of that crankshaft position sensor. So I know where I'm going to go, I know what I'm looking for, and probably I'm wrong about this, but we have a direction without just firing the parts cannon. That's the idea. By the way, how well did replacing the crankshaft position sensor work anyway, for this guy? So that's the direction we're going to go. I know Scotty's fans are all wondering, man, this guy sucks. He's been talking for 15 minutes and we haven't even moved a wrench yet. Yeah, exactly. Move a wrench on what? As a matter of fact, most likely I am going to fix this vehicle without even using a wrench at all. So that is how I do things, and that is the way we are going to do it right now. Oh, one other advantage I have, and that is that I believe I'm going to be able to do this without a wiring diagram, because, as I mentioned before, we did crankshaft position sensor on my Trans Am, and while I'm not totally 100% sure of this, we do remember that the input wiring, the, what's the word I'm looking for, the reference wiring is going to be green. We remember that from the video on the diagnosis and understanding of crankshaft and camshaft position sensors, because it really caught me off guard that the green wire, which of course you would expect would be a ground, was indeed, when we looked at the wiring diagram, the ignition positive, and we validated that also with the voltmeter. So I am very positive we're going to have the green wire. I don't remember what the other wires were. I remember there being a yellow one, I think, for the signal. So as long as I've got any two of these, then I of course know that the other one is of course going to be the ref low, and we'll be able to figure this out anyway. But the nice thing about this is, now that I have some background knowledge because I did my homework earlier, I won't even need to pull up a wiring diagram. Really, just knowing the green wire is going to be the reference signal is going to be more than enough for me to figure out the system. So let's get started on that. Also wanted to show you the codes on the scan tool. A lot of times I forget to do that. All right, well actually we got a new one now. We got a random misfire code. Earlier we just got the P0336. And as I mentioned, we were trying to do the crankshaft position sensor relearn, but we're unable to do it, I believe because the codes kept popping up. It kept giving this out of range error, meaning that it was detecting something out of range with crankshaft position sensor, and it just refused to do the test. Again, when we warm up the engine, we start having that phenomenon where it will start to run bad. Although it is still running good right now, but I'll get in there and rev it up for you a little bit, see if you can hear through the microphone the rough idling and hesitation. But also the fact with it warming up, that would also be another variable typically, and that is we're thinking, well, wait a minute, it runs really good when it's cold, but then once it warms up, it runs bad. Is that a closed loop phenomenon, or is that a temperature phenomenon? And again, that's where that P0335 code originally comes in, because we've never pulled that code up yet. And that is telling me that there is variability. What are the variables for intermittent problems? Temperature is one of them, along with vibration and moisture and load and accessories, things like that. But I believe this is going to be more of a temperature phenomenon than a closed loop. Had we not seen the P0335 before the change of the sensor, oh yeah, that would have taken me in a totally different direction, and I would have had to start from square one. But this is telling me that this is going to be an inconsistent wiring connection issue or something. So I hope you see why that's important. You guys who followed the last series along know where I'm probably going with this. I'm going to pull up some fuel trims here. And that truck I was working on last time, that Ford, that would not respond to anything on long-term fuel trim. I come to find out the truck's name is Big Red from the owner. Reported now a little bit high. Would like to see how that responds with throttle, but as you can see, I am able to read them, and this is drive-by-wire here, so I want to create some kind of variable to change the fuel trim. So the only reason I'm doing this is because this is a little different than what I initially saw. As we can see, the engine is warmed up. Engine is still running really good. Actually, now it's starting to run rough. Yeah, now we got it. It's starting to run rough. I was actually going to try the crankshaft position sensor learn because it was running so good. Let me get engine speed up here. Yeah, it's definitely running bad when I hit the gas now. It's idling good, but... And holding the throttle still, you can see how jumpy... Whoa, we lost RPM there for a second. Totally lost it. Yeah, we're definitely on the right track here. Oh, it just backfired now. So, let me, yeah, I was going to, because it was running so good, I was going to see if it would do the relearn, but we need to fix this vehicle first before we do it. It will not do the relearn when it's jumping. Look at that right there. 9,400 RPM. It wouldn't even go that high. And we're still at idle. I didn't even touch the throttle. There is definitely some inconsistency here. So we are absolutely on the right track. All right, let's clear out of that and let's get under the truck. You guys know I love these under-car shots. So I am not even sure how to position the camera here. I want to have it stable so I don't make you guys seasick. You can see we've got another couple of variables here. This vehicle has a pretty significant oil leak, and that could be a variable if that is dripping onto the sensor. We can see it is not. But also another reason that I am down here, I forgot to mention earlier, is another variable would be the reluctor wheel having some kind of an issue. So if we've got either an issue with a loose or missing teeth on a reluctor wheel, if we have something where there is an air gap issue between the sensor magnet and the reluctor wheel, some kind of debris. So basically, putting everything together, there's like a 95% chance that the issue is going to be in the field of view of this camera. Your only other variables are going to be something along this wiring harness, which is a possibility. We have another video where one ran along an exhaust manifold and melted. That was just a few years ago. And the other possibility would be a PCM issue. So those are the only two variables that wouldn't be in this field of view. And based on the story we're putting together and the evidence we have, it is just overwhelming. It's going to be around here. So let me do this. Let me try to reposition the camera. But here's one thing. That right there is a green wire. So that I know is going to be my reference. And what I want to do is get some back probes in there. And actually, before that, let's just inspect this, because one of the things, it looks like this wiring has been adjusted because these kind of heat seals here, these heat shrink seals, definitely look aftermarket to me. So it does look like there may be something there to look at. Let's actually just take a look there. Oh, well, there you go, right there. See this? This wire here, we've got a green, a yellow, and this wire, I'm not even sure what color this is. But I'm guessing that's going to be the ref low. And that wire is wiggling in and out of its socket. Yeah, that definitely is. The other ones are pretty stable. But that's going to be our issue right there. So how easy was that? Now, of course, I want to confirm this and be able to reproduce this. So the first thing I need to do is get this camera still. All right, I will try to be conscientious of your view here, but that definitely is our issue, both because I want to be 100%, because I don't want to get back under this vehicle, and I want to confirm these wire connections. What I want to do, hey, look, there's an oil sensor wire that's kind of stripped here too. Yeah, there's definitely some shoddy wiring here for sure, but our issue is going to be here. And what I want to do is I want to identify these wires. So let me get the ignition on real quick. All right, so now I got to figure out how to get my voltmeter in here. Let's see here. And that's not going to work. All right, well, while I like to have the quantitative values from the voltmeter, I think given our situation here, we are just going to use a test light. But really would rather have the voltmeter, but I just can't get it in view right here. So what I want to do, I want to identify my wires, and my green I know is going to be my reference. And we got it right there. I believe I'm on a bad ground there, or it's a 5 volt, but I don't really care. So I know that that's going to be my reference there. Now, what I want to do is I want to get a jumper wire, and I want to just verify that the signal works. So I'm going to basically jump. This is called a crank sensor bypass, and I'm basically going to just put in a signal in there. And I need a jumper wire for this, and I cannot find one here. I thought I brought one. All right, well, we may be able to just do this with the test light. Actually, here's jumper wire. Oh no, you're going to blow your PCM doing this. Oh, really? Why? Why is that exactly? Why am I going to blow my PCM? Because I am doing exactly what this crankshaft position sensor up here does anyway. So why am I going to blow my PCM? Please tell me. I get that comment all the time from people who have no idea what they're talking about. All right, so now the only thing, though, is I'm not totally sure this is a signal wire, but I am confident enough. So I'm going to do a crank sensor bypass, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen for the fuel pump to operate and also for any spark to occur. Yeah, there it is. You hear it? Okay, the right way for me to really 100% confirm this would be to use a scope. And the trick with this would be to do 2 channels. I would have my power and I would have my signal, and then I would use the sensor ground. This is a mistake that people who, even if they know what they're doing, might make. You want to use the sensor ground on this. The reason is because it will allow me to see where my loss of signal is when I see it lost on the scope. And that is going to be because I would see the loss of the signal, but I would retain the power on my other channel, and that would tell me that that is a loss of signal. That is a signal generation issue as opposed to a wiring issue with the power or the ground. And that's the trick, or the ground. And in that case, the only explanation would be the crank sensor itself, and I would replace the crank sensor seeing that. But there is no need for me to do the scope there. What I'm going to be able to do is just replicate this probably using the test light. So I think that'll be the easier way of doing it. But what I need to do is put together a system here. All right, and I want to attach my test light to that, verify that I've got it. There it is. That's pretty weak. You know, that power signal may only be 5 volts. I don't really care. That's not what my issue is. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move this to the ground. And of course, we get our light on. And then what I'm going to do is wiggle this wiring around, and I'm not going to be able to lose that test light. All right? So that's showing me that that's not going to be an issue. But it's actually the signal wire here which is my concern. And what I'm going to do is, again, touch it there. Now, because we're going to have activity there, I don't anticipate the test light to light. But what we're going to do is listen for the fuel pump. And it does activate. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this wire back a little bit because it's like about ready to come right out of this connector. And, oh, did you see? There was a delay in the activity there. So it's clearly very inconsistent. Let me wiggle this wire connector around a little bit more. All right, so there we've got it now where I can touch the terminal right there, and we don't get the pump to activate. Now let me push the wire in just a little bit. Did you hear it? Now it works. And we did get it to a position before. Try that again. Right there. Where it doesn't work. Wiggle the wire around. There it goes. Okay, so I can show that I have inconsistency at this connector. That is it. We are done. That explains the problem. So what I'm going to do is repin this connector, and then we will put it back in, and this car should run perfectly fine after that. Well, I guess I may have lied a little bit earlier when I said I was going to probably fix this car without using a wrench. I suppose I did actually use a wrench to remove the starter, but that was to diagnose the car. That wasn't really so much to fix it. That's just a matter of the design. And nothing that anybody says is going to bother me about that. The thing that bothers me is the people who are going to just fast forward through this video. They're going to go right to the part where this is obviously a wiring issue, and then they're going to put a comment, hey, I checked on my car, I have the same problem, I didn't have a wiring issue though, and now what do I do? And quite honestly, that is where I just shake my head. I don't know whether it's pity or whether to laugh at that, but anyway, I think most of you guys get what I'm saying. This terminal repair kit here that I'm using is actually there's two different ones. This one generally helps to remove most terminals, OTC 4461. And this is like a really complete kit for removing and installing new terminals. Comes with a whole bunch of extra terminals and everything. And that I got from Amazon, and quite honestly, I don't even know what it is. There's no markings on this thing or anything. Yeah, it came in this little case and there's no markings on it, but man, it's definitely pretty comprehensive. But anyway, pretty self-explanatory on fixing these terminals. You just crimp on the new ones and pop them into the connector after you just yank the old ones out. Use these little keys here to slip them between the terminal and the connector, and you can just slip the terminals right out. But I am sick of filming from under the car, so I'm just going to fix this car, and we are going to see the final result. All right, we are back in the truck now after I've reinstalled the starter and fixing that wiring. So one of the things we're noticing, we're at warm-up, and we do have smooth idle. But we had that before. The difference now, I forgot to show the tack earlier. We saw on the scan tool tack that it was jumping all over the place. That was also happening with the dashboard tack over here. We can see we're now as smooth as can be. So definitely we've got this problem fixed. And as a matter of fact, we can go ahead and do our original task, which was to head over here and do the crankshaft relearn. So let me go ahead and get this set up real quick. Okay, the first thing we want to do is clear any codes. So let's get that done. And let's go ahead and check to make sure they're cleared now. And we can see that the codes are cleared. This is Auto Ingenuity here, my favorite go-to scan tool. We're going to go to the crankshaft position variation learn. All right, the instructions tell you to put the emergency brake on. Basically, you're going to get this thing to wide open throttle, and they don't want any chance that you drive the car through the garage or something like that. So let me get the emergency brake on. Foot will be on the brake pedal. Got my foot on the brake pedal. And then what we're going to do is bring it up to wide open throttle, basically to the fuel cutoff. And then as soon as the fuel cutoff occurs, I'm going to let off on the throttle. So we're going to go over here to activate, and it should be waiting. Okay, we have the fuel cutoff occur there. And you sometimes have to do this a couple of times, but notice how much smoother it is now. It's not all choppy and everything. And there it goes. Just took twice. Test completed. And that's it. This car is fixed. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful. We will see you next time.